We had a face-to-face to kick off this week's episode of Dynamite, and then later on we had a talky-talk. So I was a little upset we didn't have a chatty chat, but one man can dream. Also, it is All-In Weekend, also known as 2 days, where I believe there are 72,465 wrestling shows. Anybody else scared? Me too? What a loser. Also, hello my friends, what are ups and downs? The only wrestling review show you need, and I will implore you today to go and share this with people and say, listen to this bald, positive idiot. He just loves pro wrestling, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. So if you enjoy stopping by to have a good time, we shall always jump on the wagon of fun and do exactly that. Don't know what we're talking about, but we are going to up those doubts. It was Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm who was going to have a big speakathon before their big match at the pay-per-view, and here's instantly a reason why I do love wrestling. Oh, I'm so mad about everything that you've done to me, so let's just have a conversation. Storm actually appeared on the big screen at first and was like, oh man, two things do come from Texas, and I'm definitely one of them. Mercedes was so mad about this, she was like, stop playing mind games, you coward. Toni was like, I am not a coward, I am coming to the ring. And she did. And I was a bit like, why didn't you just do that to begin with? Don't really understand what your plan was. Mercedes actually even called Toni Storm a mark, so either one, she was using it as an insult, or two, maybe she thinks timeless Toni Storm is actually timeless Mark Storm. I mean, that's got a bit of a ring to it. Also kind of sounds stupid. No offense to the Marks. They then had a toast in the middle of the ring because Luther had brought out a bottle of champagne. Mercedes was all like, oh man, this has most definitely been frozen. It's totally disgusting. She was, of course, celebrating the fact she's about to become a 7-belt world champion or whatever the flub it is, when Toni looked at Mercedes like, you know what? You have not been treating me very nicely. Also had so many good lines because she said, you have the authenticity of a spray tan, the emotional depth of a kiddie pool, and that you are a pussy-face fraud. That's right, don't get mad at me. But her point was, I hold this AEW World Championship and I know who I am. You hold all these other titles and you have no clue who you are deep down in your tum-tum. Mercedes didn't like any of that though, and although her and Toni Storm have followed similar paths, they are nothing like each other, because not only does Mercedes have more class, but she's like walked through the depths of hell and called the devil a bitch, or something like that. I was like, man, I hope you're talking figuratively, because nobody is going to believe this story. Moné even likes it when the fans do boo her, because that just gives her motivation to win and win and win, so she is everything between Alpha and Omega, and all the bits in between, and at All In, she is going to become the brand new AEW Women's Champion. Toni then got very real and was like, listen, I don't worry about my legacy, because one day we're all going to be dead, and that's why we just have to enjoy what's going on right now. And while you are scared about having an ordinary life, I am scared about having an ordinary death. Now listen, that makes no sense. It's 2 + 2 equals potato, but this is just the secret of life, which does tie back in. If you say something this badass with the right tone of your voice, it just works. Toni also actually believes that Mercedes has earned and deserves all the belts she does have, but the one she's never going to get her hands on is the big AEW Women's Championship, because she is always going to be known as the women that can never know the big one. The woman. Not the women. She's one I screwed it up. Mercedes then realised this was going to have to get physical when she talked about the pay-per-view on Sunday, before correcting herself to Saturday. Honestly, this crowd was so mean. They jumped right on her instantly. So there's a new lesson learned. Let's not make any mistakes ever in front of the AEW audience. Storm didn't care about any of that though, when I think she said to Mercedes, eat this bitch, and she tried to hit her with a move. But of course, Mercedes Moné is the heel, so she wiggled and she diggled and she ran away. And I just want to say round of applause to AEW, because the whole time the commentators were saying, oh, they are 50-50, they are right in the middle of each other. We don't know who is going to win. That's the best thing about this program. You really don't. You can go to Mercedes, and that would make sense. You can go to Toni, and that would make sense. This one has proper jeopardy, which is my favorite word. And while it's not going to main event the pay-per-view, it absolutely could. They feel like superstars. If I were going to hazard a guess, I think maybe Mercedes wins by cheating, because that would piss a lot of people off. But I am giving it an up. Good segment. So it really comes down to the fact that no matter what Tony Khan decides to do, I would totally get it. There's reasonings, which is not what those grifters would say. So let's go and check in.
Did you see what Mercedes Moné did on this week's episode of AEW Dynamite? It's all Tony Khan talking about it in the press conference, lying to us all, because only I know the real truth. That's why I take pauses, look around, take big old breaths, because it means I know more than you. Everybody can off.
So it really was good, as was this Jon Moxley promo, because I tell you, if you give that man a story he can buy into and then stick a microphone in front of his face, he is going to deliver some gold. He mentioned the first Texas death match when he and Hangman Adam Page did have a fight, and fine, the Cowboy won that one, but this is a different time, this is a different age, this is a different era, and when it comes to you, Mr. Page, the pressure is all on your shoulders. We're all about to find out if you're going to crack. And you only get one shot at this, so you better not miss. He then finished by saying that Page is a victim, a waste, and absolutely pathetic. Honestly, I believe every word. I think he hates Hangman Adam Page, even though of course he doesn't, and it got me so pumped for this main event. And given what does happen at the end of Dynamite, this is another one. I'm not entirely convinced that the Cowboy is going to win. Bravo, John, you get it up. The favourite part as well is that if Jon Moxley said this in public in real life, he'd be arrested instantly when the Young Bucks arrived in their limousine. Now, at this point, I was like, why are the commentators talking so much about this vehicle? Like, they were going nuts for how horrible and awful it is. Well, that was actually going to tie it. Excalibur also said, oh, surprise, surprise, they missed their cool time because they think they're the EVPs. I was like, oh, sorry, dude, I'm not having that one. No wrestler, according to the television shows, arrive on the time. In fact, every single one of them is always late. We went right into some death wrestling war after this too, because it was time for some fighting. And we had Bandido and Brody King taking on Takeshita and Carl Fletcher. Now look, I'm super pumped for Carl Fletcher versus Adam Cole. And of course, we're getting Bandido versus Takeshita at the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. Because Brody King was here, I was just a bit like, man, he should be in the TNT title program too, or at least he should be after All In. Maybe that's why we did this match. That dude has momentum right now, and we gotta capitalize on it. He is in the Casino Gauntlet though, so I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed he does get the victory, although I can't see it. When he looked at Takeshita, and Takeshita looked at him, and they just charged at each other. It was big men slapping man meat. Takeshita then raked the eye, so Carl Fletcher was in, but this just annoyed Brody, who continued to run down everyone. And when he got the tag to Bandido, that guy was just going, ping, 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 man, I'm a bandit, you can't stop me. And I wouldn't want them to be a tag team long term because they have more potential as single stars. But I tell you, they had something. Bandido then wanted Takeshita before their big match on Friday at the ROH show. And obviously, usually the heel would be like, no, I'm not fighting you. Takeshita was like, all right, he just got in the ring. They were both going for tilt worlds though, which is totally dumb when Carl decided, right, I'm gonna do a dive, 2025. I know, I forgot the dive counter. It's back, right? Now look, it only goes up to 3, because this bald idiot did forget. But don't worry, because by the end of this episode of AEW Dynamite, it's probably going to be up to 52. Bandido then got whooped for a while before he did this awesome DDT to Carl Fletcher, who sold it like he was dead. Hot tag to Brody King, and once again, you know the deal with this guy, he's just too flipping good. Now actually, Carl dug deep here and kind of cut him off with the Michinoku driver, but that's when Bandido had taken his med pack and he tagged in, and once again, he was just pinging around like a ping pong ball. I mean, the Don Callis family wanted to get him with some kind of super power bomb, but instead he was just busting out all these Hurricane Ranas, and he's another guy. When he came back from his wrist injury, he was a little bit, not slow, but he was trying to find his place again, but now, my gosh, he's on fire. Not literally. Bandido then got the splash of the frogs, and even though Brody was trying to hold back Carl Fletcher, Fletcher got free to break it up at the 1-2-0. And then it went bad for Brody King, because he went for his splash into Barry Barricade. Carl got out of the way, and I swear, he just legitimately booted him right in the face. Bandido didn't care because he went for his 21-plex on Takeshita, which somehow ended with him doing a moonsault to the outside on Fletcher. So that's going on the dive counter too. I suppose that did make him a bit confused because Takeshita was waiting. He smacked him again. He hit the, what's it called? Raging Fire War 9000. It's not called that, but you know what I'm talking about. His finishing maneuver, 1, 2, 3. Raging Fire. There you go, Raging Fire. And the most interesting thing about this is if we go with wrestling tropes, it means Takeshita is going to lose against Bandido. But there were some other results that I presume were going to happen at All In. And once again, if we go back to the wrestling tropes throughout this episode of Dynamite, well, none of them are going to happen. Or all of them going to happen, or baby faces are going to lose. So I don't know whether Tony Khan sat down and went, ha, we can have some fun with this. But either way, it's made me dial right in. Also, this match was fantastic. They're talented fools. Bless AEW as well, because they then had this video documenting what happened between the Outrunners and FTR on Collision. And honestly, if you have some time today, you have to watch it. It is a brilliant old school tag team match, and it will just make you smile, your face will feel good. That's why you watch wrestling. Floyd and Magnum even mentioned how they're not done with FTR, so they are going to have a party old match on Collision, because Jet Speed and the Patriarchy are going to be involved too, and of course that now ties into the tag team title scene. And coming out of the pay-per-view, somebody like FTR should be injected into that too. I suppose now the Outrunners, good stuff. Freddie Paquette must have seen this too, because she then ran and she found the Patriarchy and FTR hanging out. And Christian was all praised for FTR. He's like, man, I've been watching what you've been doing and it's been good stuff, man. I'm a big fan of being assholes. He was going to run down their accomplishments too, but he doesn't have enough time, when essentially it was made very clear, if you scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours. And given that the Patriarchy are now in the tag team match at All In, maybe FTR are going to turn up to help. Stokely Hathaway also said similar stuff after this, like, man, it is so unfair that FTR are not in that championship match because they are the winningest team in all of AEW. But once again, we like you, Christian Cage. When he tried to shake his hand and Cage wouldn't give it to him. So Stokely literally just grabbed it and did an air, wibble wobble, whatever you want to call it. It was very funny. And as always, Stokely Hathaway is an entertaining person. So I'm not sure that Christian Cage trusts any of this, and I bet they do get involved at the pay-per-view. But here is the deal, just going back to Collision slightly. I know that Christian Cage and MVP had all those segments, but all of a sudden throwing him and Nick Wayne into this tag team title match, well, I think it's a bit confusing. Now, if I were going to hazard a guess, I suppose FTR will turn on the Patriarchy, they beat up Christian Cage, and Nick Wayne could join them, which when Adam Copeland returns, because if you're going to do it, why not do it on the biggest stage? But given how odd the Jet Speed and Hurt Syndicate stuff already was, sticking these people in here too, it's just felt a little bit rushed. And because the rest of All In has felt like it's been built, well, this one has just thrown me a little bit. It's not a big deal, it doesn't matter, but I am going to give it a down, because when these things stick in my brain, well, if I don't tell them to you, I am doing us all a disservice. And what's the point of this show? I mean, there's no point to this show anyway. It's just me going like this and talking about wrestling, but we're here, we may as well do it. When we finally put a rubber stamp on who Ricochet's new crew is going to be, this has been heavily teased over the last week or so. It is the Gates of Agony. Of course, the only disappointing thing about that is both those guys have hair. I don't know why Ricochet would turn his back on me like that. Obviously, the fans were chanting bald. Khan and Leona, I suppose, were getting mad. But then I was like, well, you're full heads. So what's the point here? What are we going to do, man? We continue having to walk through life with a very cold head. It's why he was taking on Blake Christian as well, because the Gates of Agony had taken out his partner Lee Johnson. So Christian had gone, well, I could get revenge on the people that were directly responsible, or I could go for the head of the table. Not that guy. He's on a different show. And we basically did what we always do with Blake. He had a ton of offense. He looked really good. Hit this awesome Spanish fly, an awesome 450, when Ricochet was like, yeah, I've got friends now, and we killed your buddy. They're going to interfere, and I'm going to win. Blake also slapped Ricochet's bald head at one point before he did do a dive. So let's just deal with that business first. And there's another one. Struggling to watch Ricochet matches these days. There needs to be some kind of bald championship that only bald people can win, and then one day a full head win it, and that full head like just burns into dust. I don't know what that means. Of course, eventually the Fences of Pain did come out here to get involved and cast distraction, which allowed Ricochet to take over. And even when Blake Christian tried his best, eventually they're on the outside and they totally murked him. Now, actually, eventually Blake used their backs to try and get back at them, but at this point Ricochet was taking the referee and Christian didn't know what was going on when he got hit with the Spirit Gun and he got hit with Vertigo, and Ricochet pinned him for the 1-2-3. When him and the Gates of Agony did celebrate together. So there you go, the three guys are together. I guess we could call them the BFHGs, the bald, full-headed guys. And actually, in this crazy world we do live in, isn't it nice that two very different people from different walks of life can get together? I'm exaggerating here, but I am going to give it an up, especially because I think the end game will be Ricochet becoming the TNT champion or something like that. It's always good when you start a group, because then you can go, ha ha, and do that dumb laugh he does. My plan was well executed, otherwise it's like a jackass. I'm giving it an up. I like it. Ricochet then found the Hurt Syndicate because we were about to have a talky-talk between MJF and Mark Briscoe. And Max was like, listen, Mark, my boys are coming out with me because we're going to hurt you. The clue is in the name. He also talked about winning that World Championship back, and I think eventually he will be a big opponent for Hangman Adam Page. When we have to put one on the crime counter, because there was a literal crime. MVP walked in and said, hey, Bobby Lashley, Hell Shet Benjamin, it's time for a photo shoot. And when they went into the locker room, somebody had stole their titles. I'm going to have to read this. It was written on the whiteboard. It said, hey, Shelton and Bobby, or whatever, since we already pinned you on Collision, we figured we would take the titles. Happy birthday, Jet Speed. And my initial reaction was, I thought they were meant to be the good guys. I then laughed out loud again because MVP was like, we have to go and sort this right now, meaning MJF was going to have to go to his talky-talk alone. I was like, aren't you able to do two things consecutively? You could go to the ring and then find your championships, or you could ring the police. Also, I presume it is Shelton Benjamin's birthday, so happy birthday to Shelton, He's a very good dude, a very nice man, and I like him a lot. But I am just going to give it up to the Kenny Omega versus Okada video, because my gosh, this was good. It made you feel like it was the most important thing to ever happen to mankind. Like if a meteor was coming to Earth, we'd still go, listen, we'll deal with that in 1 second. Before that, I've got to watch Ken versus Okada. We also talked about the fact it came from New Japan, but all the stuff we have been doing in AEW too. And at one point, Okada just went, man, I made you bleed, and I loved it, whereas Kenny was more like, I'm going to be a different person when I get into that ring, but when we do that, let's give us our all for one more time. And yeah, I can't wait for this. I think they know the bar is super duper whooper high, but they are going to clear it. It absolutely gets an up. It was flubbing brilliant. And usually I don't like promo videos before the show. I felt like you want to put both people in the ring. This was so damn good. I have no complaints at all. I'm also going to whack an extra 2 notes onto the crime counter too, because during both these segments, MVP said when he realized the tag team championship was stolen, we're going to kill Jet Speed. And Okada did it here too. And Okada's was well funnier, because we had all these like cut to Kenny, cut to Okada, and one of them, Okada looked right down the lens and said, maybe I'll kill you. You can't say stuff like that. Do not try it on the streets. The crime counter continues to rise. When it was our controversial time of the week, this usually comes up, but it's quite the rarity when it happens during a segment dubbed Talky-Talk. Everybody was shouting about Maxwell Jacob Friedman's tiny kosher pickle to prove you can get anything over in wrestling. And I did see a few people, just a vocal minority, going, I can't believe they called it Talky-Talk. That's the best thing about it. It's so dumb. It's so wonderfully awesome. It is so wrestling. And actually, that's the first thing Max said. He was like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Why the flub is it called a Talky-Talk? Maxwell then pretended to be a southerner to wind up the crowd when he said something along the lines of, trying to get into a fight with me is like a man with a bag of rocks trying to take on a man with a machine gun. Thought it was quite a good line. I'm just going to read the next bit again too, because I want to make it right. And then you know I'm not selling this. But he looked at Mark Briscoe and he said, you hillbilly, go take a walkie walk back to your meth lab in Dumpster Fire, Delaware, to feed all 95 of your inbred, shoe leather children and chicken feed, you pathetic poor. All right then. Briscoe then admitted he knows what MJF needs, which is a good old ass whooping. But that's for Saturday. Saturday is ass whooping day, which means Wednesday is Talky-Talk day, because he's got Maxwell Jacob Friedman all figured out. Because he is a proud redneck who has worked for every single dollar that is in his pocket. And fine, MJF, you're in your nice suit with your stupid scarf, and that probably costs more than my entire wardrobe. But I tell you where you are bankrupt, morally, and also I am blessed with a bunch of friends and family. I don't think you have any of that. This is always MJF's weak point. You could see it in his face. I'm secretly sad. Bankrupt is the word of the day too, which is why Mark Briscoe once again knows what MJF is going to do. You are going to go as low as possible and talk about my brother Jay. Well, there's nothing you can say that could get at me, so have at it, I give you the floor. Now, first Maxwell said he would never say anything about Jay, who is one of the best professional wrestlers ever, and in fact, he was an even better human being, which is why he's in a good place upstairs right now. However, he does have to pity Jay, who is probably looking down right now, and seeing Mark Briscoe, who at one time was part of the best tag team in the world, and now is nothing more than a joke. The line that sent everybody crazy, though, is when Maxwell kind of leaned in and whispered to Mark Briscoe, the real thing I would like to tell you is if Jay Briscoe was here right now, he would probably say to you, it shouldn't have been me in that accident, it should have been you. Unsurprisingly, Mark Briscoe punched him right in the face. Briscoe almost got the Dre Driller too, but then finally the Hurt Syndicate did turn up. When it turned out that Jet Speed must be stalkers, because they were hurt instantly, and my gosh, they jumped the Hurt Syndicate, and for the first time in 79 years, they actually made a dent on it. During all of this as well, MJF was chased out the building by Mark Briscoe as Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight used those tag team titles to slam the Hurt Syndicate right in the face. And at one point, I think Shelton Benjamin went into Simba the Steel Steps. When the Patriarchy arrived, they had a chair, they were whacking the Hurt Syndicate as much as they could, and they targeted Bobby Lashley's leg. They gave the leg a concerto, which is a very weird sentence. The commentators were like, what's now going to happen at the pay-per-view if Bob can't walk? We're back in the ring. Jet Speed continued to team up on Shelton. They got him down. Kevin Knight even hit his UFO splash. I was like, well, we are not in Toto anymore, Kansas. Jet Speed were left standing tall, but this goes back to my wrestling tropes conversation. It kind of means that Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin will retain their belts, and they understand that Jet Speed finally had their one-upmanship. But if we look at the total episode of Dynamite where they almost died, well, the percentage is high. So anyway, before we do move on, let's double back round to this Mark Briscoe and MJF stuff. And this is the good thing about having a long tenured show. When I've talked about this time and time again, my opinion hasn't changed. if Mark Briscoe and the Briscoe family and Jay Briscoe's family all sat down and talked to Maxwell Jacob Freeman about this and they said, you know what, it's totally fine, I'd like you to do it, then I'm totally fine with it, and in fact, it's nothing to do with me. Because there's no way this wasn't cleared, and there's no way it was just an ad-lib that MJF threw out there, and not in a million years would I ever go up to Mark Briscoe, who has had to suffer the mention and go, well, I don't think you should have done that, if this is the way he wants to remember his brother and kind of insert him into a storyline. Well, more power to him. I mean, it's his grief, man, and I'm not going to be one of these people that utilize it as a weapon to go shout at people online. In fact, I think that's disgusting. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you have to like it. If this is the line for you when it comes to pro wrestling, you'd rather not merge the two, I can totally understand that. But still, in terms of a segment, we did take the Casino Gauntlet, we did take this crazy three-way tag team title match. Let me use my favorite word again. We did add a lot of jeopardy and heat to it. Briscoe versus MJF feels like a feud that we have to carry on after this pay-per-view as well, even if one of them does win the Casino Gauntlet. In fact, maybe they screw each other over, and that's how you do continue it. And as absolutely insane as the Hurt Syndicate patriarchy and jet speed stuff is, I could not call it. If somebody busted into my house right now and put a gun to my head and said you have to make an accurate guess, well, I would probably be lying on the floor right now. Then who the hell would have uploaded this video after seeing that? It's a very mean editor. But I am going to give it an up, and I just want to clarify, I totally get if this was the wrong way of the fence for you. Mark Briscoe is allowed to do whatever he wants with the pain he does have in his stomach. That's all I'm going to say about it. Thekla, Mega Bayne, Queen Aminata, and Melo were then going to decide who would be the number 2 entrant in the women's gauntlet. Was perfectly fine. And sure, there were a few moments that were a bit wibbly wobbly. I think Melo was waiting or wanted to deliver a cutter and kind of stood still, but that happens, they're just human beings. And really, I suppose the most interesting story coming out the other side, well, there's two. One, Megan Bayne is a monster and she'll kill you, but also two, Queen Aminata and Thekla are going to hate each other till the end of time. It also kind of underlined the fact that this was probably going to be Jamie Hayter's position, but she did get injured, so I hope she was okay. And Chris Statlander, who is numero uno in the gauntlet, was watching on. And I'm not sure what you could get from this, other than the fact that Megan did win, which means at the Casino Gauntlet for the women, the first 2 entrants will be big women slapping woman meat. At one point, Thekla did this big old crossbody into the pile as well, but there was also at least 3 other dives 2025 before this. So just increase it by 3. Now, I told you when I introduced the dive counter, I'm going to miss a lot, because I am but one man. So it's like Goldberg Street. Do you remember that? For like, I don't know, 2 months, Goldberg Street was legit. And one day it jumped up by 12. I was like, well, how did that happen? That's the method we use it. There was this really cool moment when Thekla was running wild, but Bayne stopped her and gave her a falcon arrow, and she looked really powerful. And that is when the Queen and Tide realized, listen, Megan is sort of doing really well here. Why don't we both punch her in the face? That's what they did. That didn't work at all, because Megan just grabbed Thekla and threw her into everybody else. I will never get over human projectiles in wrestling. Flipping Megan Bayne then did a dive, so please put another one on the counter, when eventually Penelope Ford and Anna Jay, who were on the outside, started fighting, which was always going to happen. If you're in charge in a wrestling show, I think seconds just stop coming towards the squared circle, because it always ends in chaos. We instantly got back to the action though, and Megan Bayne just totally ruined Queen Aminata and smushed her face when she gave her a pretty good looking running Liger bomb. She got the 1, 2, 3, then she posed for a bit. I guess if I was going to find a negative here, I think Megan Bayne, or at least Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, just need to cut more promos. They used to do this, and they do a little bit on Collision, but I just need them there explaining what their deal is the moment they kind of come, kill people, and then they leave. And yes, look, once again, it did fall apart a little bit, but wrestling is not meant to be synchronized swimming. It's meant to be a fight. Once again, there's a very fine line between, oh my gosh, it's an actual mess, and oh man, it just kind of feels like they're jockeying for position. I'm going to give it an up. Ultimately, I was entertained. I believe that's the idea. Excalibur then sent best wishes for everybody in Texas who has been affected by those floods, so I thought we could take a few seconds here to do the same. I mean, it doesn't mean much coming from me. While I'm sure they're going through hell, I just hope they're as okay as they possibly can be. Renee was then talking to Thekla, and this really made me laugh, because the question was so loaded. It was like, okay, well, you didn't win, but you didn't lose. And let's not forget you haven't been pinned yet. When Queen Aminata just ran in and smacked her right in the face, when Mark Briscoe popped up and was like, MJF, I knew you were going to do that, and now I'm going to murder you all in. Actually, no, he said, I'm going to kill you, you curly hair bitch. So that's a 1 on the crime counter. There were so many death threats on this show. Bless Renee Paquette as well, because she just stood there while everybody was fighting. It was like, oh man, It's pretty tense in this room. We do not talk about Renee enough. She's very good at her job. I now have a curious and somewhat unfair down to throw in there, but we did get Samoa Joe and Wheeler Yuta, and given how Wheeler Yuta has been used the last, 6 months, maybe a year, I thought he was going to die. Now, as a pleasant surprise, he was like a wily cat here trying to figure out Samoa Joe, but I just thought it was a bit ridiculous. The commentators are like, well, ever since Wheeler Yuta turned on Bryan Danielson, he's been a totally different person. Yeah, he's been the dude that gets absolutely murked and the Death Riders laughed at. I didn't think he was meant to be posed as much as a threat. Now, we should change that because I'm a big fan of Wheeler Yuta, but that just felt like a bit of a disconnect to getting it down. This was still entertaining, and Samoa Joe just makes me laugh because at one point he quite literally tried to snap Wheeler's neck. And yes, Wheeler did a dive, so it goes up by 1 again, but when he went to do something off the top rope, he could tell Samoa was going to do some noping, so he faked an injury. And it didn't work, so a few seconds later, he tried again and Samoa Joe noped him, and the nope spot could be the best spot of all time. From there, Wheeler Yuta's big plan was to keep poking Samoa Joe right in the eyes, which wrestling heels in 2025 love to do, but then he was like, well, I'm going to try the most devastating move. In all of sports entertainment surprise roll-up, you can't do that to Samoa Joe, and he stood up, he smacked Wheeler Yuta, he applied the Coquina clutch, he tapped out, Samoa Joe wins. Because of course he does, but actually it went about 8 minutes, and it was pretty entertaining. We then basically learned that Pac isn't going to be ready for All In, which is a shame, because Gabe Kidd ran in and he attacked Samoa Joe, so he will be the third guy for this trios titles match when Samoa Joe's operation team came out to save their leader. So now we've figured it all out. But yes, I am going to give it an up. It was just a good match, apart from this weird all of a sudden Wheeler Yuta is a threat again, but we should continue that on. He's good. Although, yes, this is when we were saying Wheeler Yuta has too much hair, or the fans were chanting, cut your hair, and then earlier on they were calling Ricochet bald. What is a man meant to do? And speaking of fun, we then ended with this party match, although I learned this week, somebody DM'd me, we're not allowed to call it a party match, because that's too much fun. Okay, cool. How about we call it a Your Nan Just Died match? Sounds good, that's pretty serious. What's more serious than that? So let's put on our serious faces, and Dynamite this week ended with a Here's How Your Nan Died match. Great, happy times. I'm really happy I watched this. It was Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and the Young Bucks taking on Hangman Adam Page, Will Ospreay, and the other 2 members of Samoa Joe's operations. And this was one of those things where it's just like, okay, we've got a lot of matches to build before All In. How do we accomplish all of that? By Jove, they did it. Hangman Adam Page especially was just on fire here because he was taking out everybody, not for dinner. And of course, that makes all the sense in the world as well. He is our hero going into the big pay-per-view of the year. He should be whooping ass. When he went after Moxley too, he just ran away when the Young Bucks got in there and they took out their former friend. But then they did a pose when Will Ospreay was like, I've got air in my feet, and he jumped in and flattened. Tabata and Powerhouse Hobbs then proved they could be a tag team because they were slapping each other's hands and doing double team moves and stuff. When William basically used Hobbs' back to do a Sky Twister press, and he got a 1-2. Ooh, my big question was, did they plan it in the back, or did Will Ospreay just see another Williams back and go, I'm going to jump off that? Because both answers are pretty damn weird. Page then did his Asai moonsault, which I think has to count as a dive. So good grief, I regret this, but put a 1 on the board. And then for the second time, he started running around just booting and punching people. If you're a fan of Hangman, as I'm sure we all are, this just made you desperate for him to win that belt. That worries me too. I feel like we're being teased. He even got out of Claudio's big swing at one point, so Castagnoli was like, fine, I'm going to go over to Powerhouse Will Hobbs, and we're going to get all big man meat, slappy man meat time. That didn't work either, because Powerhouse just basically ignored everything that he did, and then he took everybody else out too. So now I presume Hangman, Adam Page, and Powerhouse need to be a team, because they were running wild. Bo was then choking people, so the Young Bucks hit him with a super kick when Will Ospreay tried to flip, and Matthew and Nicholas whammed him right in the face with their feet, and that looked horrible too. When they looked at Powerhouse Hobbs and thought we should take him out too, but no amount of kicks was stopping him until he did get wibbly wobbly, when, I tell you man, Claudio and Moxley grabbed him as he was teetering, and they threw him through a table. So he was taken out, he was done. Tabata then basically realized that he was all alone, so he better try something. And instead, he got hit with the EVP trigger. Claudio smashed him with the neutralizer when we tagged in Jon Moxley, who strangled him half to death with the choke. He had to tap out. And of course, that's massively important too. That is our world champion. He's about to defend the belt. And he goes into Saturday with a W in the column. Now, you just knew there was going to be a post-match angle because there had to be. And the Death Riders with Gabe Kidd got in the ring and they took Will Ospreay and Hangman Adam Page. They wrapped a chain around the Cowboy's throat when Matthew and Nicholas Jackson were given the plastic bags by Marina Shafir, And here's my question. I understand the Riders of Death did this with Bryan Danielson because they're a bunch of loons, but how did they convince the Bucks? Once again, this is a conversation. They're like, listen, if you're going to work with us, even on a temporary basis, when we ask you to commit murder with a bag, you must say yes. The Bucks are like, well, I guess we have no choice. Now, thankfully, Swerve Strickland appeared on the big screen. And at first, I was like, Swerve, this is the most terrible plan ever. There's murder going on in the ring. You can't be out there. But it turns out he wanted to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. So after he turned to the Bucks and said, you have ruined this year, and I need vengeance, he was sat in a dicker. And he destroyed this limousine. I mean, it felt very similar to the Attitude Era, and I loved it a lot. And then to go back to what we were talking about, this is why we focused on the vehicle, because we were going to break it. Somewhere Steve Austin was most definitely smiling, and this is when Matt and Nick just ran out to check their inanimate object, because they must love it. When Samoa Joe ran in, I guess that sorted the numbers game. When Hangman Adam Page took his Phoenix down, he whacked Jon Moxley just when he was going to hit him with the buckshot lariat. Claudio took the flipping move for him. He took the bullet. When Hangman realized, oh my gosh, I've got the chain. When it was Marina Shafir that pulled Moxley out of there. So it meant the cowboy was standing tall. So yes, this is another time that you should worry as we go back to wrestling tropes. I'll just say what I said again. The babyface was on the up and up here before a pay-per-view. Your choice if you'd like to be concerned. But then saw the Young Bucks in the parking lot looking for their limo, and they were so funny, because when they laid eyes on it, they said, well, how are we going to recover financially? When Prince Nana decided, I'm going to kick you when you're down, and he laughed at them. But this was a distraction when Swerve Strickland kind of jumped from a very mediocre height with the Swerve Stomp, but it was still pretty good because he's like Batman. He went to the ring, he celebrated with Will Ospreay, Hangman Adam Page in the middle ring, taking in all of this praise. So again, either Hangman Page isn't winning, or Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay are going to feud for a long old time, because Will put the whole we can't challenge for the world titles for a year on the line, and they're going to be defeated. But seriously, AEW did a great job here. Not only was it fun to watch, not only was it totally crazy, but it has left me totally perplexed. I am totally confused. And if we get to next week and Jon Moxley is the same champion, Swerve and Will like, oh man, we're really screwed now, I won't be surprised. But that's the kind of secret sauce I need. Keep me guessing, man. I'm giving it an up. It was pretty flipping good. In fact, I'm going to call it great fun stuff, which means GTS, and that must have been what CM Punk was talking about. And yes, overall, this show is going to get an up. All they needed to do was get you pumped for that pay-per-view, and they achieved it. However, you may disagree. Drop me a comment below, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Tweet the video for ups and downs for mundane or raw and otherwise. What do we have? We've got Great American Bash, we've got All In, we've got Saturday's main event, and we've got Evolution. And there's probably some other promotions running wrestling too. I will cover as many as I can. I'm going to spam your feeds. I apologize. But if you could support the videos, it would mean a lot to me. And now I shall go lay down in preparation. I will see you then.